Greetings, Remnant Church and online friends. Welcome to another Midweek Refuel, where we talk about time, seemingly all the time, whenever we have time. Augustine is really grappling with this thing called time, isn't he? For weeks, his reflections have centered on time. It's almost like he didn't get the memo that time flies when you're having fun, but apparently it does slow down quite a bit when you're deep in theological reflection. This week, however, he shifts to timelessness, or how God stands outside of time as we understand it, unbound by its limiting factors. Augustine's reflection on God's timelessness invites us to step outside of our limited understandings. This isn't just some difficult abstract theology we're going to go over. It's a call to embrace the mysteries of faith, to embrace them, that these mysteries that stretch beyond our reason, that help us to see God's purpose in ways we might not have ever imagined. This reflection on timelessness challenges us to reframe how we view our lives, our purpose, and the fleeting nature of time. And before we dive in, take a quick moment to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Not only will this keep you connected with us, but it will also help more people discover the life-changing message of Jesus Christ. So thank you very much. Now, let's dive into how creation, time, and God's will bring purpose to all of us. The first thing he notices about God is that God is unchanging, or what theologians would call immutable, the opposite being mutable. This may sound like a no-brainer to you, but Augustine is bound and determined to make sense of mystery. Have you noticed how many people approach mystery these days? Not many. Many reject the mysteries of faith simply because they prioritize limited human logic and reason above everything else in existence. Rather than engage with the unknown, they retreat and dismiss it as foolishness. They don't want to stare at it too long, so they call it foolishness to protect their egos. Augustine, however, calls us to approach mystery as something not to be feared or run away from or dismissed, but something to be engaged with, allowing it, the mystery, to lead us deeper into God's truth. Young people today often regurgitate and repeat whatever they've heard about science, reason, and rationality in school, and these things being the only reliable tools for understanding the world from a materialist perspective. But Augustine is not a materialist, and he invites us to see mystery. Not just to see it, but to see it as something to be engaged with, not dismissed. Paradox is a tool. It's one of those tools. It's part of the toolbox that should be added to the other five senses. And paradox is the tool that Augustine uses to explore divine truth. It shows us that two seemingly contradictory ideas like faith and reason can actually work together to deepen our understanding of God. For Augustine, embracing paradox is not about abandoning logic, but about allowing faith to take us beyond the limits of human reason. He says that God's unchanging nature is a mystery that we cannot and will not ever fully grasp. But this doesn't mean it's foolish. It means it's quite difficult. Rather, it reminds us that God is fundamentally, at his core, different from us, eternal, perfect, and outside the limits of time. There are things in this universe that require humility to see and to understand. These things are the beautiful things, the glorious things, the things that cause you to gasp in awe at the design of the Creator and his ways. Today people scoff at virgin births and they make fun of dead men walking out of tombs. But when they do so, they only limit themselves. I hope you see that. 1 Corinthians 1:25 says this, "For the foolishness of God is wiser than human wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than human strength." Unquote. A verse that has helped me personally to navigate this strange landscape we're in, this satanic simulation, is 1 Corinthians 2:14. And that verse informs us that the person that is without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness and cannot understand them because they are discerned only through the Spirit. Unquote. It took me 52 years of life to finally figure it out. But the truth is this. There are some people, in fact, many people, who cannot and will not hear the mysteries of God. It is like talking to a person without a sense organ. It's like talking to a blind person about the color blue. They might nod. They might even intellectually realize that blue is associated for the scene with cold or with the sky, but they'll never truly know blue. They don't even have a frame of reference in which to conceptualize the idea of blue. Same with a person without the Spirit. A person without the Spirit, as Scripture reveals to us, is like someone trying to see without eyes. They may intellectually grasp certain concepts, but without spiritual sight, the deeper truths of God will forever remain beyond their reach. Praise God, the Spirit is a gift that is given. The Christian wishes, when they're talking to people or when they're reading the Bible, the real Christian, the born-again Christian, wishes to hear and talk about how Adam rebelled against God and how he was thrown out of his high and lofty position in the garden of God because of his misdeeds. It's as simple as that. The unspiritual person, the person without spirit, they begin to ask a litany of questions that don't make sense and mean nothing when it comes to the text. The Bible is not a math book, nor is it a biology book. It is a book about the Spirit. They might ask questions like, how do you explain 7-day creation? Or, virgins can't have babies, right? And feel pompous asking these questions. Or even more ridiculous within my lifetime has been, have you read the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas? I like that one better. I don't know why y'all didn't put it in the original Bible. Guess y'all are hiding something. I don't know, yeah. Well, you should do your homework a little better. Your soul's on the line. Or they might question how you can believe something that to them defies reason. But as 1 Corinthians 2:14 says to us, it's not about intellectual understanding. A person without the Spirit is like someone trying to grasp the color blue without ever having sight. It's beyond them because they lack the spiritual faculties to perceive it. This disconnect isn't because they're unintelligent. Many of them are extremely intelligent. I don't mean to put them down at all. It's simply because they don't have the Spirit guiding them. And until that transformation happens, until that changes, the mysteries of God will remain hidden from them forever. For someone who is spiritually blind, Paul says this to us, for the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing. But to us who are being saved, it is the power of God, unquote. Go read that verse over and over and over again. Meditate on it. The words are important. Listen to these other verses about human knowledge. 1 Corinthians 8:1 says this, we know that we all possess knowledge, but knowledge puffs up, while love builds up. Or Proverbs 3:7, which states, do not be wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord, and shun evil, unquote. Knowledge is limited to facts and understanding of the world, while wisdom is the ability to apply that knowledge with humility and spiritual discernment. Listen to these verses about human knowledge. 1 Corinthians 8:1 says, we know that we all possess knowledge. Listen to these verses about human knowledge. 1 Corinthians 8:1 says, we know that we all possess knowledge, but knowledge puffs up, while love builds up. Or Proverbs 3:7, which states, do not be wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord, shun evil, unquote. Knowledge, human knowledge, is limited to facts and understanding of the world, while wisdom is the ability to apply that knowledge with humility and with spiritual discernment. If knowledge hath not puffed us up, then perhaps we can humbly cling to Lady Wisdom and rediscover a much-needed sense of awe and wonder in our own day. Augustine doesn't ignore the complex parts of Scripture. He embraces the mystery. And because of this, his writings have endured the test of time. His writings have become an enduring wellspring of divine wisdom for everyone. Augustine deepens his understanding of God's truth by allowing his mind to engage with paradox. Rather than avoiding Scripture's complexities, he dives head first into them, recognizing that some truths may be beyond human comprehension, but that doesn't make them any less real. His willingness to embrace paradox doesn't weaken his faith, it strengthens it. Augustine shows us that divine wisdom often flourishes in the tension between seemingly contradictory ideas. And by doing so, Augustine teaches us that it's not about having all the answers or resolving all the mysteries. Instead, it's about trusting in the divine plan that transcends human logic and transcends human time. His work remains a guiding light because he understood that faith and reason are not enemies, but partners in the pursuit of truth. This is why his writings continue to endure. He invites us to join with him in contemplating the mysteries of God. What a grand adventure, knowing that some truths are meant to be lived and experienced rather than fully explained. Augustine, in this section, is going to discuss time again. This distinction between temporal and eternal realities are on the list, creation's dependence on God's will, and the concept of a timeless act of creation are all within this chapter. Each of these topics would require a full postgraduate level course to understand any of it in an appreciable manner, so we're not going to go there. Instead of trying to figure it all out, let's instead just hear what he has to say. Let's allow it in. Let it inform our thoughts on other matters, and we just might find that mystery, especially the mystery of God and time, is not something to be solved, but rather something to be embraced. In the presence of divine mystery, we are invited to wonder, to worship, most importantly, to trust in the one who holds all things together. Augustine reminds us that sometimes the most profound insights come not from dissecting and analyzing things, but from resting gently in the knowledge that God's ways are higher than our ways. The mystery of God and time, when accepted with humility, can lead us to a deeper faith, allowing us to glimpse eternity even as we dwell within the temporal. So, let Augustine's words speak to you. Don't strive to master them. Instead, just let them stir within you a sense of awe. And in that awe, we find the true wisdom that Lady Wisdom offers. Not answers to every single question, but a peace in the unsearchable depths of God's truth. Now, let's dive into chapter 15 and explore what Augustine has in store for us today. If you don't have a copy of the book, you can get a free version from Project Gutenberg. I'll put that link in the description below. Make sure that you sign up for our email list. That link's down there as well. And if you're enjoying these lessons, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Your support helps us spread the gospel and reach a massive amount of people with the message of Christ. So we thank you for being a part of this journey and a part of this mission. Starting in 12:15-18. Will you say that they are false, then, the things that the truth speaks in my inner ear? That the eternity that belongs to the Creator is true indeed, and that his substance does not vary in any way over time, and that his will does not extend beyond his substance? This is why he does not will now one thing, now another, but once and simultaneously and forever wills all that he wills, not willing them repeatedly, nor willing now one thing, now another thing, nor willing later what he had not willed earlier, nor not willing later what he had willed earlier. For such a will is mutable, whereas all that is mutable is not eternal. But our God is eternal. Will you deny also what the truth says aloud to my inner ear, that expectation of things to come becomes contemplation when they do come, and that contemplation becomes memory when they have passed away, and that all mental vision which changes in this way is mutable, and all that is mutable is not eternal, whereas our God is eternal. These inferences I draw, these links I make, and I discover that it was not out of any change of my will that my God, the eternal God, established the created world, nor is his knowledge subject to what is transitory. What then will you say, you opponents of mine? Is what I say false? No, they reply. Well then, is it false that every formed being or every matter capable of being formed exists only because it is of him who is supremely good, because he supremely exists? This too we do not deny, they say. Well then, do you deny that there is a sublime creation that cleaves with such chaste love to the true and truly eternal God that it does not loosen its hold of him and disperse itself on any change or sequence of time, but rest in true contemplation of him and him alone? For you, O God, as you teach us, reveal yourself to those who love you and satisfy them. And for that reason, it does not decline from you toward itself. This is the house of God, not earthly, not corporeal, even with the stuff of heaven, but spiritual, sharing in your eternity, being eternally without stain. You have established that house forever and ever. You have made fast your commandment, and it will not pass away. Nor, however, is that house co-eternal with you, for it is not without beginning. It was made. For even though we have not discovered any time which existed before that house, and even though wisdom was first of all created things, that wisdom was not co-eternal with you, our God, its Father, nor is it equal to you. Through it were all things created, and in the beginning you made heaven and earth. But the wisdom that was created, namely a being perceptible only to the intellect, was light through contemplation of the light. For though it is created, it too is called wisdom. But the difference between the wisdom that creates and the wisdom that is created is as great as that between the light that enlightens and the light that is enlightened, or the difference between the righteousness that makes righteous and the righteousness that is made righteous thereby, for we too are called your righteousness. One of your servants says, we are the righteousness of God in him. It follows then, the first of all created things was the wisdom which was created, the rationale and intellectual mind of your chaste city, our mother on high, free and eternal in the heavens. And what heavens are they, if not the heavens of heavens that praise you? These being also the heaven of heaven, which is the Lord's. This being so, even if we have not discovered any time that exists before wisdom, since wisdom was first of all created things and precedes the creation of time, nevertheless it follows that before wisdom is the eternity of its creator, from whom wisdom took her beginning when she was made, not her beginning in time, for as yet there was no time, but the beginning of her creation. Hence, this house is of you, our God, but is something other than you. It is not the same. Not only have we discovered no time that was before it, but not even any time within it, worthy as it is to see your face, always without turning aside from it in the least, for which reason it knows no alteration or change. Yet there is in it the capacity for change. It could be darkened and chilled, were it not that by cleaving to you by force of love, it shines like the noonday, having its heat from you. O house of light and beauty, how I love your fair honor and the habitation of the glory of my Lord, your mason and indweller. For you I sigh on my pilgrimage, begging your Maker to dwell in me through you, as he is my Maker also. I have strayed like a lost sheep, but on the shoulders of my shepherd, your builder, I hope to be brought back to you. What do you say to me, you opponents whom I was addressing, who nevertheless believe that Moses was a pious servant of God and that his books are the oracles of the Holy Spirit? Is not the house of God as I described it? Not co-eternal with God, but nevertheless, according to its proper measure, eternal in the heavens? Were it is vain for you to seek for temporal sequences, since you will find none. For whatsoever has cleaving to God as its good transcends all distension and all fleeting space of time. It is so, they say. Which then, do you argue, is false out of the things that my heart has cried out to my God, hearing the inner voice that glorifies him? Is it that there was formless matter where before there was no form, there was no order? But where there was no order, there could be no successive sequences of time. And yet that near nothing, insofar as it was not wholly nothing, was of him from whom all things exist that exist in any degree. This too, they say, we do not deny. Now, as we come to the end of this week's Midweek Refuel, let Augustine's reflections on time, eternity, and God's will stir something in your heart. The mysteries of God, like the paradox of his timelessness, are not problems to be solved. They're rather gifts to be embraced. So as you go about your week, remember that it's not about understanding everything out there perfectly. It's rather about letting your awe and your wonder lead you into a deeper relationship with your Creator. It's all spiritual. You will have noticed that Augustine addresses some shadowy figures that he names my opponents. We can't say for sure who he's talking about, but we could presume that he is speaking either to the Manichaeans, the pagan philosophers of his day, or the Gnostic sects that were flourishing during this time period. His opponents questioned the coexistence of faith and reason, just as they do today, like the skeptics who lean entirely on human wisdom and reject anything beyond the material world. How limiting. These opponents represent the voices that dismiss mystery and embrace human wisdom as the ultimate authority. God help them. Augustine challenges these perspectives, not by providing easy answers, but by inviting you and me into a deeper engagement with mystery. Whether it's the Manichaeans who believed in a dualistic battle between good and evil, or the pagan philosophers who sought to understand and rationalize everything, or the Gnostics who claimed secret knowledge, Augustine's opponents all had one thing in common. They rejected the idea that faith could coexist with mystery. But Augustine's response is clear. Faith is not a rejection of reason. It is the recognition that human reason alone cannot comprehend the full depth of God's truth. He teaches us that sometimes the most profound insights come when we stop striving for certainty and begin resting in the divine paradoxes that point us towards God. So, as you continue reflecting on this lesson throughout the week, consider what mysteries you've been avoiding or dismissing in your own walk with God. Perhaps it's time to lean into those unknowns, trusting that, like Augustine, you'll find wisdom, not in having all the answers, but in the awe and the wonder that comes from embracing mystery. We live in what can many times feel like a dystopian nightmare world where the enemy tries to distort our view of the world. But those who seek the city not built by human hands will catch glimpses of God's kingdom breaking through the shadows. In the midst of the chaos and the darkness of this world, faith opens our eyes to a deeper reality that does exist, one that reveals God's eternal purpose unfolding. Like Augustine, we are called to see beyond the visible, trusting that the fairy tale of God's kingdom is more real than the brokenness that's all around us. Augustine reminds us that it is not in the clarity of this world that we find hope, but in the hidden eternal reality that God is building. For those seeking a city not built by man, there is a deeper truth, a greater beauty, and a divine purpose unfolding beneath the surface of what does seem broken. As you go about your week, remember that this fairy tale landscape is not a fiction. It's the reality of God's kingdom advancing even in the midst of shadows. When moments of confusion or doubt arise, don't shy away from them. Instead, embrace these moments as opportunities to trust deeper in God's plan for you, knowing that the mysteries of faith are meant to guide us, not to confuse us. Instead of seeking answers to each and every question, rest in the assurance that God's purpose is unfolding even when we cannot fully understand it. Probably mostly then. Hold fast to hope, trusting in the eternal city whose builder and maker is God himself. Embrace the mystery. Let moments of confusion guide you deeper into faith rather than fear, and rest in knowing that God's plan is unfolding even when we can't fully comprehend it. Let your faith guide you through the fog of this world to the light of eternity. Thank you for joining me for this week's Refuel. This week, I challenge you to engage with mystery. Instead of seeking answers to every question, instead, take time this week to reflect on mystery, especially the mystery of your faith. Those aspects that may be beyond understanding. Let them guide you into deeper trust, knowing that faith doesn't require every answer, but invites us to rest in God's perfect wisdom. Augustine elsewhere said this: God is not what you imagine or what you think you understand. If you understand, you have failed. That's a paraphrase. If today's message has encouraged you or taught you how to think in a new way, please hit the like and subscribe button down below, and may the God of mystery and glory shine upon you. May you find refuge in the truth that all time will be swallowed up within His victory. May you find peace in the knowledge that you can know everything with the help of what you do not know. Pascal once said, quote, "Reason's last step is the recognition that there are an infinite number of things which are beyond it," unquote. Embrace the mystery and become fully human. Godspeed, and don't forget, Christ is King. Hail to the King.